Hi there, welcome to In the Rough with Angie. I am here with my new friend Ethan today, and we are going to be talking about Ethan's journey through something called survivor's guilt. Ethan and I connected on Threads, and then I started looking into your story, Ethan, and it really just grabbed my heart because you've taken something traumatic and painful in your life and you've turned it around to speak on it to help other people. And you are a published author, you're a speaker, you're a mental health advocate, and you're a mentor and a life coach to help others find their way through pain. So, just starting out, can you use two words that you would use to describe yourself and why?
Creative. I have a creative side to me, allows me to think outside the box, connect with like-minded people. And then greatness. Let's see, both my grandmas, one grandma believed I was born with greatness, one had faith I was born with greatness.
I love that. That is awesome. And then to what would you say brings you the most joy in life?
Waking up every day, finding a purpose, finding something to do, taking it one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 minute at a time.
Yes, that is huge. So, what would you say that your childhood was like?
A lot of things. Growing up in a single parent house at 4, then turned 5, then the challenges of education, and then I was in learning support classes due to my disadvantaged environment. But yet I was still a student athlete, and I'll just say certain adults weren't making healthy choices, but I look back on it now, like they did not take the time to do the work on themselves individually, become the healed versions of themselves. So that became a passing of generational trauma, wounds, and scars. Then I also look at it from an vantage point of if they would have took the time to heal themselves, they would be known for resiliency, comeback story, and yeah. But other than that, I thank my coaches through sports for helping with that transition of seeing positive men who are educated,
Yeah.
helping with that transition of moving from Coatesville to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, maintaining those relationships that have evolved over the years. And then I also see myself in a lot of kids who come from single parent households. There's times where I talk to single parents and explain to them, like, I don't even know the story why it didn't work out. I just gonna tell you that you can have a comeback story from this. I
Right.
tell them sometimes the example is this woman named the late Dr. Rita Waddell Smith. She was married, she had kids, but unfortunately the marriage didn't last and her husband went separate ways. And what she ended up doing was this. She took the last bit of money she had from that divorce, gave it to a homeless person. Her child asked her why. She explained, that person who's homeless out here don't have nobody. We have a support system. We have places to go. And eventually she sent her children to boarding school while she worked on getting her master's degree, doctoral degree, and became a college professor at Temple University. Eventually she became a professor at Millersville University. And there was times where instead of hiring a babysitter, she would just bring her children with her.
Yeah.
And I say all that to say is that don't allow yourself to make excuses on why you want to stay being a single parent. Evolve with being a single parent. Eventually, you'll attract more better options, or you'll be learning
Right.
lessons on what not to do and what to do. But it does take community, vulnerability, mentorship, and be intentional.
And intention?
Yes.
Yeah, I like that. So, what advice would you give to a child that has a single parent and maybe they're struggling with their identity or they're struggling with how they view themselves? What advice would you give them?
I have to understand like how I was in their position that as I look back on it now, it's not my fault. It's just sometimes the people you are closest to, either you're in a blessed situation, an uncomfortable situation, or disadvantaged situation.
Yeah.
And you have to look at the situation of we don't know that certain adults who are parents are not the healed version of themselves. Even though they go to church, might go out and about, be dressed in the nicest clothes, have a nice car and all that, but none of that stuff really matters. If you're not happy from a mental health standpoint and breaking free from trauma, wounds, and scars, you start bleeding out on people that are closest to you, and most times it's the children.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have to understand that this is not by design. It goes back to the feminist movement where the government was giving them incentives to create a message pushing out certain individuals out of the household while giving another message to other people to get married, we'll give you all your benefits. And you look at the world now compared to 70 years ago, there's more single parent households than ever. And the people who are profiting off it the most is the welfare system, realtors, Section 8, HUD housing, town housing, you name it, and sometimes the projects. But there's plenty of people who have comeback stories from coming from the projects, like Coach Dawn of South Carolina, women's head basketball coach. She grew up in the projects and make her comeback story. There's many more stories I could tell, but ultimately you have to be willing to read stories on how people grew up in a single parent household. This isn't anything new. It's just sometimes it's the same environment, just different people. Or another way of saying it's the same game, just different players.
Yeah, for sure. And then how would you define overcoming? Like, what does overcoming look like?
Overcoming can just be, for me, like when I went to college, I struggled with math, but I reached out for help, spending more time with the tutors, had a private tutor, spent time with the professor during office hours, and then I became much better at math. And when it comes to other people's areas, like for example, when I used to work inside school buildings, I would help kids with their math, their reading, their writing, open up this and that stuff. Now they became better versions of themselves.
I love that. So, can we talk a little bit about how you overcame survivor's guilt? I looked it up because I hadn't heard of it before, but I can definitely understand how it could be something that happens to people. From the National Institutes of Health, the definition is survivor guilt, also known as survivor syndrome, is a psychological response to surviving a traumatic event that others didn't. It can manifest as feelings of guilt, shame, or sadness, and can be triggered by reports of similar events. Is that an accurate description, you think?
Yeah, it is. Like, I didn't know I was going through survivor's remorse when it came to my anniversary of being a walking living miracle. I always feel the waves of emotions. I knew I wasn't doing anything I wasn't supposed to with alcohol, drugs, anything out of the ordinary. It wasn't until I got interviewed several years later by the Southeast Times newspaper, where I thought it was just a feel-good interview. Well, I read the newspaper and I made the front page of it. Right as I get towards the end, I realized two words: survivor's remorse, and that's what the light bulb went off, and I realized that explained everything.
Yeah.
And I started wondering, why didn't I find out about this much sooner, to deal with this sooner? So I ended up getting help through counseling and realized I can relate to people, those who may have had to bury a child, a grandchild, a cousin. People in the military deal with that when they come back to civilian life. Or
Right.
lost a buddy due to combat, battles, and wars. There's some people who might go through survivor's remorse, losing a teacher, an educator, a person who's a mentor, a coach, you name it. So I can relate to a lot of people, so therefore my mindset starts shifting.
So, how long ago was it that you did this interview and that it came out that you realized that that's what you had been dealing with?
Maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah, I was just like wondering, and that lit off the light bulb, and I realized that was another situation of pushing me outside my comfort zone, even though I didn't know that was my uncomfortable zone. But until like, let's see, last February of this year, I got interviewed on television, CBS 21 of Harrisburg, and they highlighted survivor's remorse. And this was done during Black History Month. And it was more of a touchy situation, but it allowed other people to see things in a different light.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. Do you feel comfortable sharing like your accident, what happened, and then kind of the recovery process?
Yes, I do. I'll say this like I tell everyone. I don't actually remember the car accident. The truth is, I had to like research it. Television, radio, newspaper articles, looking at my social media wall on Facebook where all these people saying they were praying for me.
How old were you when this happened?
Early 20s.
Early 20s?
Yes, but I do remember the day prior to everything. No, I remember everything prior to the car accident. I was helping out this nonprofit organization at the time. It was called Children Deserve a Chance Foundation. Then later rebranded to Atalo Prep. We were selling Dewsburn watches. We exceeded our goal for the morning shift and the afternoon shift. We took our pictures and everything was good. I leave. uncle, my aunt, 2 cousins. And the last I remember seeing is the Hess gas station, these shopping outlets, and bam!
Wow.
I wake up twice. I wake up in the ICU unit, Cloud 9 state, but I don't remember that. People say I was talking and everything and being funny. And then I wake up in a less medicated state where I wake up and I got IVs in both my veins. I got a left black eye. I got staples near my groins. I lost over 60 pounds.
Wow.
I was just like, what happened? Nobody wanted to tell me anything. So I go to the part about the car accident. Basically, the guy who was the driver took some medicine that made him drowsy and ran into an 18-wheeler. He died on impact. My aunt saw her fiance pass away right before her eyes while she experienced some broken bones. Unfortunately, I lost a little cousin who was sitting on my right-hand side.
I'm sorry.
The other cousin was on the far end, and for him, it's just more of a mental situation of witnessing it and experiencing it. Part of this journey, was looking at everything later on in life where I felt comfortable, where I realized the fire department was called to use the jaws of life to cut the car in half. The ambulance people were there to check my pulse. And then it wasn't until many years realized that I was watching NCIS New Orleans. There was this guy who was suffering from internal bleeding from gunshot wounds.
Yeah.
And how he survived it was they poked holes in his rib cage to let out the blood. When it comes to me, when I was suffering from internal bleeding, turns out that explains why I got these scars here and there. They poked holes in my rib cage to take out the internal bleeding, which delayed it, allowed me in time to get to the hospital to get an emergency surgery.
Wow.
Then they had to put a neck brace on me, then an ambulance ride, and the nearest hospital is at least 30 minutes away. Iris surgery. I remember one person told me they thought I died on the operating table, but they decided to put me in like a coma or whatever. And then a woman cries hysterically. And then eventually she sees me when I wake up. And that's the day I was declared a walking living miracle.
Do you know how long you were in a coma?
I don't know. I don't remember off the top of my head. I know it was for days.
It was for days?
I know it's just uncertainty, being on that medicine and stuff.
Yeah.
Because it was just a high risk surgery because the mathematical equation was 99% chance of death versus 1% chance of life, and it was the faith of mustard seed that beat that 1%, that 99%.
Right. That's amazing. So that happened, and then what was it like psychologically as you leave the hospital and you're continuing on with your life? Like, what are you going through mentally after that?
It's a situation where I'm on all these medicines. It's like if I were to shake your hand in person, like a greeting, like skin to skin, you would feel it.
Yeah.
But if I shake your hand with an oven mitt, you're not gonna feel it.
Right.
That's what the medicine was serving as a blocker because I was still suffering from that concussion.
Okay.
I was still sensitive to light, and I was also on the feeding tube for several months. But my larynx had gotten paralyzed because they put that tube down my throat in the ambulance ride. And then there was also at least a month of rehab. And then, I couldn't eat or drink anything for several months. My mouth was watery than a dog. I had to sleep with a towel underneath my face. That way the pillow doesn't get soaked.
Yeah.
Since my left collarbone was fractured, I had to sleep either on my back or my hand side.
Wow.
And by the time I was able to eat again, they couldn't even do the surgery because the bone had already healed.
So were you talking to God at this time? Like, were you having conversations with him about it?
Yeah, I was like, what's going on here? This isn't what I expected. This isn't like what I imagined experience being in this time of health problem. I just remember people keep me on their prayer list, people coming to visit me at the hospital,
Yeah.
rehab, and having Bible study in my home at the living room. Then there was a special anointing done, prayed I could eat again. And then there's just a lot going on that I talk about in my book that was extra.
So who would you say were your biggest supporters during your recovery process?
I remember this one woman came over as a home care nurse. There was a variety of different churches. There was a variety of different people stopping by. Yeah, it was just a really big situation that no one wanted to see me go.
Were you living alone at that time or were you living with family?
I was living with family, my mom, my two younger brothers, but they were adults by that time, and my younger sister,
Okay.
she was a teenager.
How was your mom dealing with everything?
Well, a lot. Year prior to my car accident, she had lost her son, who was my older brother, to gun violence. And I didn't realize later on in life, even after my situation, she was not making healthy decisions. And I talk about that in my book.
Yeah.
And it turns out she was going through survivor's remorse, but she didn't want to get the treatment for it.
Okay.
And things start showing up in different areas of life.
So what are the symptoms of the survivor's remorse?
People spending money excessively,
Okay.
fighting their own help, people doing drugs and alcohol just to numb pain when you're just
Yeah.
medicating, and the reality is that you're making it worse than what it is before, because once that feeling goes away, you're right back where you started, and it took me
Absolutely.
several steps back. Eventually it'll get to the point where, if you ever watched a show called A&E called Intervention, people will come into your life unannounced and do an intervention and give you an ultimatum of, hey, this is how we feel. This is what we're concerned about. Here's the interventionist. We got a treatment plan for you to get out of state, do this rehab for 6 to 9 months. And here's the ultimatum: either you go, or we gotta cut you loose. We gotta keep a distance from you because you're making our livelihood worse. We can't allow these children to see this version of
Yeah.
yourself. And there's times where some people are resistant to the help until they come to their senses, like, I gotta go to rehab. Yeah, because I've seen some situations where some people are facing either death, jail, living in chaos, or go to rehab, or go to a retreat like Door of Hope Ministries.
Yeah.
And I've also seen people go to Teen Challenge.
So what was your process? Did you go to a facility to kind of work through the process, or did you stay at home and just talk to mentors and people from the church and stuff?
It was just talking to different people. But again, like when you're like, I'll just say, when I'm on all these medicines, it's just numb to the
Yeah, that makes
touch.
sense.
It's like I know what's going on, but I just can't feel something. It's like I can hear the music, but
Yeah.
I can't feel the beat.
Yeah.
But eventually, when they start leaning me off the medicines over time, I start feeling more myself. Eventually, things became overwhelming, and I'm like, Jesus, it's a lot I went through.
Yeah.
And just looking around like differently. But again, there's more stuff I went through that made things worse several times over that I talk about
Yeah.
in the book.
And I can understand, like, when something traumatic happens, you don't want to feel that pain. You don't want to feel that intensity. Like, you just want that to stop. Like, you don't, you feel helpless. You don't understand why it happened. So I can understand people turning to something to just completely numb that pain because it's hard to deal with. Like, do you have advice for somebody maybe that just went through something traumatic and they're tempted to, like, numb themselves out right now? What would you tell them about, like, what their first step should be? Like, would you have advice? They're wanting to, like, just numb themselves out. What would you tell them?
First, don't fight your help. Don't fight the hand that feeds you.
Yeah.
There's plenty of resources out here for help, whether it's counseling, therapy, rehab, retreats. There's plenty of people out here who are givers, such as coaches, life coaches, mentors, talk therapy. There are people out here who want to make a difference and add value to your life and help you multiply and get you out of the struggle. Because there's a reason why you're in that position, but it's time for you to elevate, level up.
Yeah.
I did the work. I didn't do no drugs or alcohol or that stuff, but it's a journey. It's a marathon.
Yeah.
It's not always going to be easy. But eventually, as you address your certain wounds, scars, trauma, scars, and things you carry, it's like an onion.
Yeah.
One layer at a time until you get to the core. Eventually, you experience a breakthrough, but you have to do the work on the individual level
Yeah.
and prioritize it. Put away the cell phones, put away the social media, put away anything that you're going to say is an excuse or distraction, because no one's holding you back unless you allow them to. Similar to dating, nobody's putting you in the friend zone unless you allow yourself to be in the friend zone. Another example could be nobody is, I'll use myself as an example. Even though I was in learning support classes on my IEP plan, there was no expectation to further my education, and self-published author and everything. But I didn't allow that stuff to define me.
Yeah, I love that.
You gotta be around, because I basically exceeded those expectations. And now the people who doubted me, that eat their words for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a midnight snack. And if they don't floss, they're gonna have to get a root canal. But ultimately, you can't allow certain circumstances to define you. You gotta rise up to the occasion.
I love that. And then, so you wrote a book. What is your book called?
The inspirational story of Ethan A. Poetic, chronicles of adversities, education, sports, relationships, and resiliency. I got 8 full words, 2 back cover reviews, available as a hardcover, laminated case as you see. Then I got the soft cover.
Oh, nice.
Then online I got the ebook. Just in case.
Awesome.
Then of course, if you got headphones or have a surround sound, I got the audio book.
Oh, that's nice. So where can we find your book?
Let's see. If people want to support me directly through my softcover and ebook, you can get them from me directly.
Okay.
Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, Zelle, and what else? A certified check.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely going to be getting a book because, I mean, amazing story like of overcoming and rising to the occasion even when you don't want to. I love it.
Also,
So,
also online, there's also my ebook and audiobook available on all major platforms: Amazon, Audible, Kobo, Spotify, Google Play, Apple, you name it, it's there.
awesome. And then, so now you are, would you say you're a life coach?
I am, like, for example, I support student athletes because long story short, when I used to work the after school sports programs and inside the school buildings while furthering my education at the same time, people were researching me. When I'm at the sporting events, parents do the small talk to know my name, and then they come back and they say, "Is this you from the car accident?"
Oh,
Because they saw it, and I'm like, I didn't come to work to talk about this. I came to work to focus on being a person who's helping the kids out,
yeah.
education or sports. And I realized later on in life, there's 2 sides to it. What they saw was encouragement, inspiration, because not only some people come from something dramatic are addicted to drugs and alcohol and not furthering their education.
Yeah.
What they didn't know was I saw humility, vulnerability, and I didn't plan on talking about it. I thought when I made my recovery from a physical standpoint, I could just go about life, go off in the sunset, have all this attention. Again, life has a way of pushing me outside my comfort
I
zone
know.
but I realized it was preparing me for something greater. And I realized that since I overcame the situations, lasted the situations, now it's bigger than me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I said before, you asked me the 2 questions, describe me, greatness. And in order to be great, now I have to inspire other people to overcome their own adversities, life challenges, struggles, mental health stuff, and be a living example of it.
Yeah.
And it's not something I make up. It's like, this is where I, talk about myself more, but in a different light of telling people it's just to highlight progress that's being recognized. This year I received the NAACP Award, Outstanding Community Engagement. I'm the first in my family to receive not 1 but 2 Commonwealth citations from the Republicans and Democratic parties for non-political reasons.
Yeah.
Then Proclamation Declaration from Lakeshore City Council and the mayor. Then I received letter of recognition from Coatesville City Council members and the city manager. Then when my colleges found out, they decided to feature me in their college newspaper, and give me an Overcoming Adversity Award. And my own high school gave me a letter of recognition. And then eventually I received more awards and accolades. Like, for example, last year around this time, I received the Distinguished Alumni Award from Harrisburg Area Community College and recognized at the Giant Center. If you Google my name, you'll see all these television interviews, podcast interviews, similar to this one. And I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, so I was reading some things. So what is a certified restorative circles facilitator? That came up by your
Oh,
name and I'm like, wow, what is that?
I did one of those last March in New Jersey at a school called Robert Moore's Middle School in Southbound Brook, New Jersey. Basically, let's say this is my talking piece. My eyeglass case. Well, it got some wipes in it too. And I, give this to one student at a time to talk about certain things. What's the problems going on in your school? What are your difficulties in learning? Too many times adults tell kids to not talk back, but the reality is that they have something to speak on.
Right.
And there's also certain things that teachers don't know a child's going through. But it's more about a situation of creating an open line of communication in a safe space. And this can be done in a workplace, college, private events, public events. So we have to bridge the gap more often than not. And that's where I come in. I earned that certification through ABOS. That's been around since the 1990s. And I also am a certified mediator.
Mediator's big, because you have to be like the neutral party and you're trying to bring the two people back to agreement. Like, that's got to be challenging.
Well, it's a matter of just listening, taking notes, and see what people are willing to agree on.
Okay.
And as you get to the layers, eventually, after time, patience, and persistence, you'll get to an agreement between two people.
Yeah.
Parties, or maybe three parties. Because at the end of the day, it's about impacting lives, organization, community, and society to become better versions of themselves. Because far too often, some people feel one-upped on because they didn't feel heard.
Right.
And eventually, when I got these certifications, it allowed me to show things much differently that, even though I do bring representation of diversity, it also shows families and communities and people on social media that there's more doors out there than just being a student athlete. So let's bridge the gap in other areas of life.
Yeah. So how would you say, what is an example of making something a safe space for somebody?
I could say, for example, sports.
Okay.
Like, for example, that could be the outlet for somebody. Like, for example, I use myself, for example, and I, circle it to, a present tense. Like, for example, I didn't see my biological father or like that until I realized he was an unhealed version of himself doing drugs, alcohol, among other things, but people were trying to get on not to repeat the same cycle as his dad. His dad wasn't doing drugs. I don't know about the alcohol part. But I realized by having those coaches be there for me and sports was the outlet what brought us together, it helped me see things in a different light. And when I graduated college twice, they get to tell their wives, like, that's the student athlete I invested into. That's why I came home a little later. That's the student athlete I would drop off at his house when no one had a ride for him back home. That's the student athlete I invested into and believed in him. And now that makes his wife think back in time like, we did invest into that person. He is a reflection of you being a coach. He is a reflection of me being the backbone as your wife, supporting you through those late times when people don't see things. As we look at things now, present tense, those same coaches can say, I want the type of relationship I had as I had with Ethan, with you, is bigger than X's and O's and victories. I want to help you become that productive member of society. Graduate college. And the biggest key point they tell them is, and I've said this before, I graduated college without an academic and without an athletic scholarship. I had to work 1 to 2 jobs at a time while going to college.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So that is to tell them that you're going to have it much easier by earning a academic scholarship or athletic scholarship, having your national signing day, just by following the path of purpose, the right direction, and taking classes that counts towards college credits. So it's dual enrollment, STEM, honors classes, you name it. I didn't have that opportunity in school because I was labeled for learning support classes. And all that did was put me in a box, like an Amazon box, but eventually I came out, but it was more about coming out more openly as an adult than I was a teenager.
Yeah.
But it was never too late.
Right. I agree. Yeah, it's never too late to speak out to what God has put in you, because you're the only person like you. There's only one of you, and God has like a special purpose just for you. So if you start using your voice, and that's a lot of what why I wanted to do the podcast is because I feel like God has a message he wants me to get out, but it's through other people. It's through what they've overcome. It's through we make each other stronger. Like a diamond shapes another diamond. Like it takes another diamond to shape it. So it's just, I mean, we can have so many feelings of I'm not good enough or I'm never going to be at this place. But if we're just honest about where we're at, and like you said, take it one day at a time, take it 1 minute at a time if you have to, and then keep moving forward, keep going. Ask for help, like you said, that is a huge one. A lot of times we don't want to ask for help. We just want to stay in our own misery, but it's so important to ask for help. And being prayerful, like ask God, like send me the right people that are going to help me through this. Like send people to me on the flip side that I can help walk through it. Yeah, I think so. What is your mentorship like? Do you do like calls? Do you do like in-person mentorship, or how does that work?
It depends on the situation. It could just be me being at a sporting event and being present.
Okay.
It could be me being called to speak at a school, be me being called to speak at a practice or a musical event. Or it could just be me just showing up at a certain place unannounced that I didn't intend on being at, but it just so happens to be the situation to make the most of these opportunities. Like, for example, I went to Franklin Marshall College to check out their graduation ceremony. I go in, there was this woman who was Asian who was waiting for me to come all the way up front out of all the people coming in. I come to sit down, less than 3 minutes later, this college professor who works there, me and him just connect instantly. Then he ended up giving me his contact information, invited me to his house for a special gathering. I ended up connecting with other Franklin Marshall College students. And then from there, those students introduced me to more students who introduced me to the alumni,
Yeah.
organizations. And then once they got to know my story, they became inspired.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that, you never know what's going to happen where you're at, time, place, location, and just having a genuine conversation with people. Because when the college professor saw me, he had no idea about the car accident, even though it made headlines in the newspapers and everything. Neither the college students, neither did the alumni of that college. The same thing happened when I was at Hack in Millsville University. They didn't know about the car accident until I made the front page of the Lancaster newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
Jokingly, I thought I was going to need a police escort to work. Yeah, so when they found out, my mentor at the time, he told the person who was in charge of my department, communication and theater. Her name is Dr. Teresa Russell Loretz, and she wrote a foreword for my book. I got invited onto this Zoom meeting. I didn't know what was going on. And then when she wanted to have that conversation with me, she was just amazed that I was going to college at Millsville University, having conversations with her, and didn't even mention about my near-death experience. Then another situation is when this councilwoman found out about my car accident, she helped me get a proclamation declaration. Mind you, the Lancaster newspaper people were there.
What's a proclamation? What you just said?
It's basically a recognition for someone doing something so extraordinary has to be recognized.
Okay.
Guy. And while I was getting recognized, and this was in the midst of COVID, I had no idea in that Zoom meeting that the Lancaster newspaper people were right there. Later on that month, I ended up going to Chester High School for a basketball game. And then I get a text from that same news reporter that works for a Lancaster newspaper. And I went from getting recognized on the Lancaster newspaper to the day of my college graduation ceremony, which was a makeup in the spring of 2021. I get featured on WJL that same day. All I'm telling you is that life happens, doors open up, opportunities open up. It's a matter of just, sometimes you're prepared for them, sometimes you're not.
Yeah. What's advice for somebody when you're not prepared? Like you're at a place all of a sudden and you're called upon to share your heart. Like, do you have advice for somebody that is in that moment and they didn't plan to be in that moment?
Well, it's real. It's going to happen. Life happens. I could tell you, for example, it happened to me on several occasions. Like the first example was I was maybe a year from recovery. This guy invited me to this camp. He said it was just to have fun, just be observant.
Yeah.
And I took the bait.
I took the bait.
And what ended up happening was this. While I'm playing the video games, having fun, he said, it's time for us to meet at the campfire. As everyone's leaving, he says, Ethan, it's time for you to give your testimony. I looked at him like,
Oh
what?
my God.
I wasn't prepared for that. I said, you serious? He said, yeah, let's go. Turn it off.
Wow.
And he walks out the building. I'm like, that's what he brought me out here for.
Man.
So at the campfire, I told the best I could, but at the time, I didn't research everything.
Yeah.
It was more raw, and I'll just say it was more raw than cookie dough, more raw than wild oats, and last but not least, it was more raw than organic honey.
Yeah.
That's one situation. Other situations at work, when I used to work in the school buildings, would be here's a teacher researching me.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I get this email and this conversation in person. She says, I learned about your story. Instead of doing this reading lesson and this math lesson, I want you to speak to the kids about your story.
Yeah.
Hard to tell a teacher no when they're...
I know.
So the next day, the kids had no idea. I spoke what I needed to spoke on. It wasn't as raw. The kids were amazed. They pulled out their iPads and were like, let's take pictures together. Then they bring out their papers, bring out their pen. Let me get your autograph. Then they tell their parents. And this was during summer school.
Yeah.
The parents are like, let me talk to the principal about this.
Yeah.
And that's when the principal finds out, and her jaw drops. She takes off her glasses like, I knew there was something special about you.
Aw.
Then it happened again during the regular school year where a teacher was like, you know what, I'm ready to take my coffee break. Since you wrote that book, tell them about that poem about you earned your college degree while I go get my coffee. I'm like, oh boy, this again, and it happens again another time, and then, yeah.
Yeah, you just have to trust in those moments that God's going to give you what you need to say in that specific moment. Like, how does it feel too, like, to have people, like, all of a sudden be like, oh my gosh, your story is amazing. Like, tell me about it. How does it feel relating to that, if that even makes sense?
There's some pros and cons to it. The pros is, hey, it's inspiring people. I do this for a living. They, didn't expect all this to happen. Parents are happy. Grandparents are happy. It's like, for example, last year, actually, I go back even further. I'm originally from coastal Pennsylvania, and I was supporting the booster club for the varsity football team, just showing up to the golfing event where they're raising money. One of the teachers and her husband said, I'm going to speak at one of these schools. And then flash forward to 2023 where the interview was taking place, or 24. And I ended up, emailing this one guy named Mateo for 6 ABC Action News coverage in Pennsylvania, Delaware, New Jersey. I wrote him on Facebook. Within an hour, he said, choose any school you want. We're going to do it.
Yeah.
And I remember what that teacher said. Contacted her. She said, all right, I'm going to contact this principal. At the time, I didn't know me and the principal's families known each other well over 50 years.
Wow.
And I used to go to church with them, and we were neighbors in coastal Pennsylvania.
Oh my gosh.
So she ended up advocating on my behalf to the superintendent at the time. And then from there, superintendent gave a green light. Then I have a talk with the principal over the phone. Then the day it was time to go to the school, I was prepared, and all the kids were in this classroom. They gave me freedom to speak about what I want, how long I want. Then the television people interviewed me on the side, took pictures, B-roll, and everything. And it made a lasting impact when it got featured the day after Martin Luther King Day.
That's cool.
And I was like, whoa, my phone was blowing up. My DMs were definitely sliding. There were people commenting on my walls, sending me text messages and emails. I recorded the interview on my laptop, uploaded to my TikTok and my YouTube channel, and started sharing the links with people who did not have television access or internet access. People who were more throwback. And then they were amazed and shared the message and the word and everything else. It made a lasting impact in the city of Coatesville, Coastal Area School District, the community, and the surrounding areas, and much more. It got to the people where people were contacting me to buy my book. They trusted me with their P.O. boxes and their mailing addresses.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny part is, on Facebook, where I took a picture with the kids holding my book with the teacher, I was taking a picture of one of my cousins in that classroom. I hadn't seen her since she was a newborn baby.
Oh my gosh. So how do you separate the attention from your identity? Like that attention that people want to give you from who you are.
I try to tell people, this is what I got to a business side of everything. I'll just sum it up, say there was a person in Philly, I'm not going to mention her name or school. She wanted me to speak at her school for Black History Month, but she tried to lowball me financially.
Yeah.
And I told her, well, I value my services and my products
Mm-hmm.
because I don't do pro bono or heavily discounted opportunities. And that's a 2-hour drive down there, another 2 hours back.
Yeah.
And I knew they had the money. I knew they received Title I funds and they had the budget. But, I had to turn it down. There's a couple other situations where two well-known organizations tried to have me speak for free. And I said, did y'all check out my website? And
Yeah.
I turned those situations down because, that's time out of my day. That's time away from what I normally would do.
Yeah.
And I tell people that I value my services.
Mm-hmm.
There's times where I enjoy being alone in my room, my house, where I could just be away from everything, just to hum
Yeah.
myself. And I try to explain to people when I get these awards and post it on social media, it's not for the likes, the comments, the shares, to go viral. It's to show people that you can overcome your own adversities. Similar to me, get recognized, but use it more as a light for other people.
Yeah.
Because I could just impact just one life, and that does it for the day or the post.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not worried about the monetary value of, I don't get paid for posting that type of stuff. I do that generally and organically because that's the purpose behind it.
Yeah.
And then there's times where I gotta tell certain individuals, when I bring up the story, I'll just give you a story. I'm not gonna mention his name. I'll just say, he would use my name at fundraiser events, trying to encourage prospective board members to join the organization, talk to prospective donors and sponsors, mention me, and volunteers. I didn't feel comfortable with that because that's my name, image, and likeness. Secondly, I didn't feel comfortable about it because I felt this was a safe space to just be myself.
Yeah.
Focus more on life. Eventually, I had 2 conversations with him. I told him how I felt. He cut back, and then I realized why I really didn't feel uncomfortable. Then I found out the real reason why I didn't feel comfortable was because I was going through survivor's remorse because that level of energy was just coming up, and I wasn't prepared to deal with that type of stuff.
Yeah.
I told him that's what I was experiencing, and then I showed him the television link to my recent interview. It was a breakthrough for both of us because he didn't know that I was going through survivor's remorse
Yeah.
all those years. So we patched things up, and we're on great terms now.
That's good. And that's a really good point that people are living their lives and we don't realize sometimes what people are carrying or working through. And we just want to take from them for our benefit. But they're really going through a process and we need to respect people's processes too. Like your identity, you are valued as a person, who God made you to be. You're valued in that. You're not valued in what you do or how dramatic your story is. Your value is in him and it's up to him, the connections he wants you to have and the situations that you speak at. But at the same time, you want people to know who you really are and to value you as a person and not just value you because of your story. So I can see how that is a work in progress.
Yeah, it's happened in schools and public eye, and I have to tell certain individuals hey, I just came here just to work.
Yeah.
Came here to be no distraction or just be this guy all the time because there's got to be a balance between being inspirational and going about life because too much of anything's not good.
Yeah, I agree.
It's the right ratio of everything. I learned how to live with it. I learned how to cope with it. It's a matter of just challenge certain things. Eventually, later on in life, kids learned about my story when I When their parents showed me the television, parents showed them the television interviews, the podcast interviews, buying my books, and then they're like, "Wait, this guy I saw on television in my classroom, television. He's here, he's there." All of a sudden, here comes the hugs inside the gas stations, convenience stores, supermarkets. For the guy, and I gotta talk to the parents. This is why, what's going on? And then some grandparents who just like who their grandchildren would talk to them and say, "Can I go see them?" They give them the hand gesture, "Go ahead." And next thing you know, I'm surrounded.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I remember one time I was in the cafeteria. I helped out this kid open up their lunch. I walk away, they gave me a hug, and there was this other kid I was telling to go sit down. And he gets up again, and he points at my leg. He's like, "Look, look." I look down, the kid who gave me a hug got Takis on my khakis.
He got what? Oh, he did. Oh no.
Yeah, that's what she did. I became the laughing stock in the cafeteria. I was trying to wonder how did this happen? It was like a five-finger discount. And then on the other side, my pants was ranch. And then I could tell it was a kid. It was a girl, and she was laughing so hard. She was holding her stomach in like her hernia.
Oh my gosh.
She had tears of joy coming down her eyes.
Oh
I'm surprised it didn't touch the ground.
my gosh.
And I realized it was a mistake. It was just that. Then my coworkers are laughing at me, and I'm like, "Oh, boy." And then the principal comes in, and she's wondering, "What's all this noise?" And the teacher said, "Mr. Ethan got Takis on his khakis." And the principal laughs, showing a different side to herself. Now this is lighting up her day after all those meetings.
Yeah, my daughter loves those. I'm yet to try them, but she likes them a lot. So I guess wrapping up, Ethan, what is something that you want people to know about you aside from your...
I'm a former student athlete who played football, basketball, track, wrestling. I'm a proud uncle of two nieces and a nephew.
Aw.
Used to play video games all the time, but I cut back.
You play video games? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I used to be a pro video gamer like Madden. My team was the Philadelphia Eagles, and I used to be that
Awesome.
guy. I enjoy walking in the park. I don't have to worry about certain things. There's only two parks, and I don't have to worry about attention. And I'm not telling those parks names because people might try to.
Yeah, don't keep them on the down low.
Yeah, I like going out there just for that nature walk. I enjoy having an 800 credit score.
And I'm guessing that's really good.
Yeah, because most people who graduate from college are in debt. I graduated college with no debt.
Good for you.
Yes, and then let's see. Well, what else about me? I'm allergic to dairy, so there's times where people will give me free ice cream and I just give it to the homeless.
Yeah, they have the lactose-free milk. Does that help you? Can you have
I,
that?
I don't even bother.
Not
There was
even
a
try
time
it.
where somebody tried to give me some sweet milk and I didn't like the taste.
Yeah.
It was just a drop and I did not like it. I'm like, get this out of here.
Yeah, I gotta move on.
Yeah, I drank kombucha, the fermented drink. It helps clear out the gut since it has
Okay.
antibiotics in it.
Okay. The probiotics?
Yes, that's the word. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
probiotics. I visit a lot of places, not that I want to, just more stepping outside my comfort zone and learn about new things in life. Like, for example, I got chosen for this award basket, and it was free tickets to the Lancaster Science Factory and the museum.
Wow.
So I thought about my little cousins. So I contacted their grandfather. He said, "Let's do it." So we go to the Lancaster Science Factory. It was me, their grandfather, the two kids, and their dads. They didn't have to pay for anything. I had the tickets for it.
Aw.
We got done taking pictures, had fun, and then we had lunch together. Then the next day we went to the museum, had fun there, and created that positive memory.
I love that. That's so cool. Well, Ethan, thank you so much for talking with me today. And I'm going to be getting your book. Did the best way to get it, did you say is ebook? Like that'll go directly to you or
No,
ordering it on Amazon?
we can talk about it after we get done the interview.
Okay, we'll talk about it when we get done here. So thank you so much
I want to
for,
tell you my social media handles.
yes. So you are on Facebook Is it Ethan Poetic? Like
Yes.
they can find you that way?
Yeah, I'm Ethan Poetic on Instagram. But my username on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, Lemonade, Snapchat is Ethan Poetic 23. That's my favorite number.
Okay.
Then I really am on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn as Ethan Poetic. And of course, my website is ethanspeaks.com for serious inquiries for speaking engagements,
Okay.
mental health advocate, restorative justice in circles facilitator. Please remember, I do value my services,
Yes.
and let's make it happen and make an impact one life at a time.
Yes, I love that. Thank you, Ethan. And we'll be talking after this interview. Thank you so much.